You've already found the best Dolphins coverage in South Florida or anywhere else on 3 yards per carry. Why not find the best Heat coverage too? Over at 5 on the floor, we give you insider analysis, but also from a fan's perspective. So join myself, Ethan Skolnick, as well as Alex Toledo, Alphonse Sidney, Greg Sylvander, and special guests for all the Heat coverage as they make this playoff run in the bubble. You can catch us on all the same podcast feeds that you find 3 yards per carry, and also on our YouTube channel where we've got original shows, streaming shows, commentaries, videos directly from Zoom and the players, and much, much more. That's the 5 on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Let me introduce you to SafeCubbies.com. SafeCubbies.com offers modular office solutions designed to elevate your office space into a safe, workable, and functional environment. Their cubicles, dividers, and modular workplace systems can be customized with graphic branding, sneeze guards, whiteboards, acrylic sheets, and magnetic panels. Most importantly, most of the surfaces are made of non-porous materials which make for easy cleaning. Adding to their professional series, there are private room solutions as well as their classroom series. SafeCubbies.com is a local company with over 15 years experience working with the nation's leading modular display manufacturers. Give them a call at 754-216-1071 or visit them online at safecubbies.com. Once again, that number is 754-216-1071 for safecubbies.com. Let me introduce you to another sponsor to the podcast, U-Brake Wheel Repair and Remanufacturing Company. Tired of your wheels? Give your car a new and refreshed look by powder coating them with a new color. Even make it Heat, Hurricanes, or Dolphin colors. They have 5,000 custom colors to choose from. Wheels faded and scratched? Renew them with our in-house wheel refinishing. They also repair cracked and bent rims while also offering in-home service. They also offer powder coating and full metal refinishing on many other metal items such as outdoor furniture. U-Brake Wheel Fix has 15 years experience based right here south of Aventura in North Miami. You can check out a gallery of their work at Brake Wheel Fix on all social media platforms. For information, call 305-748-0112, or you can also visit them on the web at ubrakewheelfix.com. That's the letter U, brakewheelfix.com. That number again is 305-748-0112.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on, and welcome to another edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. I'm Alfredo Arteaga. Simon Clancy is here. Chris Kaufman is here. And this is another disappointing edition of 3 Yards Per Carry because we're going to recap another loss. But had you bet on Miami in this game, you would have won because you would have taken those 6 points and they covered with the late touchdown. Chris, tell the people how they could have made some money on the Dolphins this weekend.
That's with MyBookie, and winning season returns at MyBookie, and that's where you can get double your first deposit. Double your first deposit. Get in on the action using promo code 3YARDS, and that's how you double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. So get in on MyBookie, and remember to use the promo code 3YARDS. Bet with the best this NFL season for your chance to win big. So your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie.
Beautiful. Now, I'm going to talk about something that wasn't as beautiful. Simon, I'm going to rattle off some numbers to you, and then I'm going to make a plaintiff statement. You ready?
Hit me.
18, 14, 16, 47, 46, 26, 46, 38, and then 12. Those are plays that they gave up almost in consecutive order against the Buffalo Bills. Here's my plaintiff statement. What
Sound
the
like lottery
fuck?
numbers.
Yeah, I mean, horrendous. Given the amount of money that's been spent on the defensive side of the ball, it was horrendous to see, frankly. We got gashed last week in the run game. This week we got gashed through the air. It doesn't help when your $80 million cornerback goes down on the third snap of the game, but that's why you have backups. That's why you have first-round draft picks, and the team got ruined through the air consistently. no pressure on the quarterback at all. And look, people were talking yesterday about pressure. We can't get, schematically, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. Schematically, the Dolphins do it slightly differently. Penetration is different for the Dolphins and the Patriots and teams that start like the Lions stylistically play this way than it is for other teams. But, that doesn't mean to say you're not still getting after the quarterback. You are, but there is a discipline element to it rather than just, all out pass rush. But the way that they rush the passer, and certainly the way they gap as interior defensive linemen, means that you're essentially setting it up so that you are better on the back end. That's what the strength of the defense, that's where the Belichick defensive strength has always been, and it's clear that that's where Flores is building his strength. But it didn't hold muster yesterday. It was at times embarrassing, frankly. Some of the tackling as well was shambolic. And people are saying yesterday, I tweeted yesterday during a very frustrating second quarter that the 2019 Dolphins would beat the 2020 Dolphins. Didn't specify a week. And people were like, that's not true. And, there's been a lot of disruption in the off season and a big turnover of play. Well, there's been a lot of disruption for every team in the league. The Green Bay Packers are the highest scoring team in the league. They're 2-0. They had a lot of disruption as well. A lot of player turnover, a lot of turmoil. The Arizona Cardinals are 2-0. There's a lot of teams that are 2-0. The 49ers are 2-0, and they've lost about 93 players so far this season, mainly to ACL injuries. If there's an excuse for the Dolphins, which is that, it's been a little tumultuous in the off season and everybody's just getting to know each other a little bit, what's the excuse for the teams that are really good? Because it doesn't stack up. I credit Buffalo. I think they're a really good team. I thought Josh Allen probably had his best game as a pro. He made some really good throws that I haven't seen him make in the past, which he always tends to do against the Dolphins.
Even then, he probably should have had 2 interceptions and maybe 3.
Yeah. I mean, Stephon Diggs underlined why he's one of the top 3 or 4 route runners in the NFL. Yes. And Noah got a valuable lesson. But I just thought the Dolphins were badly coached, similar mistakes to week one. We played better in the second half, certainly, and the offense seemed to be galvanized, certainly by Mike Gesicki. But it's just disappointing. It's a disappointing loss. And I think the most disappointing thing is that if we don't beat the Jaguars on Thursday night, I think there's a fairly strong possibility. I'm not saying it will happen, but I think there's a fairly strong possibility this team could go 0-9 to start the season because, well, you got the Jaguars, and we'll talk about them in the show later in the week. But that's a team that beat the Indianapolis Colts and then lost to the defeated AFC Championship game team, the Tennessee Titans, by 3 points when they were driving down the field at the end to win the game. And Minshew got picked off essentially as the ball got batted in the air ridiculously and was intercepted by Harold Landry. Miami then play the Seahawks, one of the best teams in the league with the best quarterback in the NFL at the moment, Russell Wilson. The 49ers, who are still the defending NFC champion despite...
Although they might have Elvis Grbac and I don't know who else playing by then.
Well, yeah.
Nobody in uniform yet.
But even with their backup quarterback, who they really like, there's a lot of people in that building that like Nick, whatever his second name is. You got the Denver Broncos, obviously Mullins. Thank you, Chris. You got the Denver Broncos, potentially with Drew Lock hurt. Cortland Sutton tears the ACL. So there's a potential there. But you got the Chargers, you got the Rams, you got the Cardinals. Dolphins could be 0-9 before they play the Jets, Bengals, and then bounce back with the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bills. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that if they lose on Thursday night, this team could be in for a really big slide. Because I don't see too many wins coming up between now and taking on the Jets on the 15th of November.
All right, Chris, were you as discouraged as I was watching big play after big play after big play negate what was actually a pretty decent offensive performance in the second half and what looked like a good team performance, what was coming as a good team performance until Josh Allen decided to just, okay, let me turn it on again in these final 6 minutes and score 2 more touchdowns?
Yeah, yes and no. So disappointed, of course, come away with the loss, and especially the defense just fall apart the way they did. What I didn't like about these 2 games put together, and this game as well as the last one, is the lack of resiliency we talked about last week on offense. Devontae Parker goes out with a hamstring, and the Patriots are doing a little bit better job against our ground game than maybe you would have hoped based on your game plan. There was no resiliency in dealing with that and, finding other ways to attack them in response to these things. Devontae goes out. You can't hit them with the play action passes to Devontae as much anymore. The run game isn't quite working. Well, fine, let's move on to this, and this. And there was none of that. It became very predictable. And so you didn't see the ability to move on. This week, Byron Jones goes out with an injury 4 plays in or whatever. And again, it was the same damn thing. Because here's what you do if Byron Jones comes out, and Byron Jones is supposed to blanket their best receiver, Stephon Diggs, who's one of the best receivers in the league. Mm-hmm. You put the other guy, Xavier Howard, on him, right?
Yes,
I
found it shocking, not to interrupt you. You could go on as soon as I say this. I found it shocking that after the game they said, no, Byron Jones was tasked to guard Stephon Diggs the whole game. And then when he leaves, okay, well, let's just put Noah Igbenogany on him the whole game.
And I sort of get it, but it's still wrong. Like I sort of understand it. Like, hey, Noah was preparing as the backup, and so he should have known Stephon Diggs and blah blah blah. No, that's still wrong because you're supposed to show some resourcefulness. You've got these 2 corners, one of whom was the number 1 corner until Byron Jones came in. And, Byron Jones goes out, then you get the other guy on him. And, maybe if he didn't prepare as if he might have to play Stephon Diggs, then that's a problem with coaching too. So I the resiliency wasn't there because when Byron Jones comes out, the entire defensive structure fell apart because now you have Noah Igbenogany, a rookie in his second pro game. What is it? 3 years since he was playing on the offensive side of the ball.
Yes.
He's got to play one of the best receivers in the league and do it without a pass rush, which means that there's no clock running, right? And B, constantly man-to-man with no help, so he's just covering the entire field, like especially on those deep crosses that they're playing or that they're running. Yeah, I mean, he's just playing a man the whole time, so he's got the entire fucking football field to cover.
I put a clock on one of those plays, and it reached 5.9 seconds. That is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous, and then that's a testament to how badly the pass rush failed in this game. And so you're going to put it on Noah Igbenogany, and I get it. Like especially that stutter and go big catch that Stephon Diggs had. He took his lumps as a rookie in his second game, but this was a failure of the coaching staff and a failure of the planning and a failure of the resiliency and the resourcefulness. And that's the most discouraging thing because that these guys should be on top of it. Your players are, what's going to happen to them is going to happen to them. Byron Jones is going to get injured. Devontae Parker is going to come up with a hamstring, etc. Your coaches are supposed to be able to roll on, and they're supposed to be able to be coaching the players well enough so that they can move on. And apparently they haven't been. And so that's why you're 0-2 right now, in my opinion. Now, on the other hand, I was encouraged by something, and that is that the offense clearly got rolling in this game. And by the end of the game, it was rolling so well that, we'll talk about in our next podcast, the Jacksonville game, but I'd be surprised if they didn't take a little bit of this offensive momentum with them into that game. Mm-hmm. So I'm encouraged. This coming from somebody that prior to the season's start, expected this game to be a loss against the Buffalo Bills because I think they're a pretty good team. Expected this game to be a loss without any kind of real home field advantage to speak of. I think that having thought that this was going to be like a 20-3 drubbing where the offense wasn't going to come up with anything, right? The fact that the offense came up the way they did after stinking basically in the first half, but then kind of coming on strong in the second half. I'm a little bit surprised by that on the upside. I'm a little surprised by and encouraged by what Mike Gesicki did. I was a little surprised and encouraged by what some of the running backs did, especially Matt Breida, who I think was all right in the first game, actually. And Myles Gaskin was all right in the first game. And I think they're kind of adapting a little bit with the running backs, and that's encouraging. I thought that Chan Gailey, started to hit his stride a little bit in the second half. I don't know whether that's, something that can carry forward or not, but there were things. This wasn't supposed to be, in my opinion, a close game, and they ended up making it a close game. And so it's hard not to be at least somewhat encouraged by that.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of the positives from this game, which there were few, none on the defensive side, I would say. But let me ask you. That's true. Yeah, I couldn't find one on the defensive side, but we're going to continue to talk about
on the defensive side. It's pass rush. It's pass rush, and the fact that you had to rely on Nick Needham and Noah Igbenogany, and that's it. And that's probably the long and short of it, in my opinion.
And how many times? Not to get off track, but how many times do you drop an interception like Xavier Howard did, and it immediately comes back to haunt you?
Oh yeah, it always does. But I don't know. There's a reason these guys play DB and drop. Yes. It drives you nuts. I get it, but dropped interceptions happen all the time. I was watching the because we're going to talk about the Jags later. How many interceptions did Gardner Minshew have that should have had in that game? I mean, it was quite a bit, quite a few. So
I know it sounds trite, but I think that something you can take away from it defensively is that for Igbenogany, who clearly looks like in a couple of seasons he's going to be potentially an elite NFL cornerback, I think the learning experience from Sunday will help him dramatically. He was interesting listening to him after the game talking about, he knew where he made mistakes. He knew that Stephon Diggs was one of the best receivers in the NFL. And he got shown why that was such a nuanced route runner. If you're going to take away some upside from that defensive performance, you look at some of the learning experiences of playing guys like that. And I think that's probably what you can take for it in terms of the kind of the basic success or failures of Sunday. There were very few, but I think if you're going to look at it in a long-term project style, then getting Igbenogany on the field for 57 snaps as he was, and putting him out there on that island, because he was very much on an island for a lot of the. I think Eric Rowe has played really well for 2 games. I will say that much. I think he's done excellent.
Christian Wilkins was decent.
Yeah, I think it was disappointing. To be honest, I was disappointed in Wilkins. Given the game he had against the Patriots, I was hoping he'd carry that through, and he didn't. And I thought that was a bit of a shame. I think that the real issue has been the money that's been spent on Ogba and Lawson, and they're not bringing a great deal of anything to the table, neither in the run game or in those pressure packages that you'd expect them to do. And that's got to be a worry for the Dolphins, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, and I ran the numbers a little earlier. I just did an overview on the game this afternoon, and of the 11 incompletions that Josh Allen had, 9 he was hurried or pressured on, and of those 9, 7 were blitzes. Okay, so obviously the coverages that we're playing were working if you could get to the quarterback within 3 seconds, but sometimes having Noah Igbenogany out there, trying to cover Stephon Diggs for in excess of 5 seconds on one time. And
that's what he said. He said after the game that he'd never, ever, at any level of football, had he ever played a game where he was asked to defend a player in man coverage for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
He said there would be times where you'd think, the quarterback could almost make 2 throws before Allen was being able to make 1. I mean,
how embarrassing is that?
I mean, it's horrendous, isn't it?
It's horrendous. Yeah.
It's horrendous.
Josh was able to stand back there in the pocket and pretty much do what he wanted, because he had, the threat was there. And if you're Sean McDermott and if you're Brian Dable, you're going to be looking at Dolphins film from the week before and seeing what Cam Newton did to the Dolphins and thinking, Josh is going to have 150 yards rushing in this game. And actually, he didn't need to. Why would he
didn't run hardly at all?
I don't. Apart from that one run where we missed about 70 tackles and he almost got the first down, I can't think of any other plays where he ran. Actually,
well, the Dolphins used Jerome Baker a lot as a spy when they didn't before.
But
I mean, he beat us. He beat us that by throwing the ball all over us. I mean, that's what and it's one of those things where, you know, I know that we're 0-2 and everything is falling apart and it sucks and life sucks, but you know, we just faced 2 quarterbacks in a row that can beat you, you know, multiple ways. And so the pass rush was horrendous, and there's no excuse for just how bad it was. But it was also going to look – I mean, if you had to pick the games in the season when it's going to look the worst, when the pass rush is going to look the worst, it's against quarterbacks like Cam Newton and Josh Allen, and maybe, you know, when we go fast forward a week and Russell Wilson comes in as well, you know, that's going to be him too, and then Kyler Murray. So I guess it just doesn't stop. But I mean, it's tough. It's tough pass rushing guys that can really, really hurt you with their legs like that. And that's, I think, what they took from what Cam Newton did to them in the first week was trying to stay extremely disciplined against Josh Allen. And so we zigged and they zagged. They just were like, you know, okay, well, we're just going to beat you through the air because you got a rookie corner in his second game against one of the best route runners in the league out there just, you know, trying to cover the entire fucking field for enough time to read, you know, a book. You know? So they beat it, you know, they beat us through the air that way. And so going forward, hopefully it's going to look a little bit better when some of the quarterbacks can't do the same thing those guys can. But then again, we're going to face some more quarterbacks that can. So they have to.
Yeah, they just need a better plan. And you kind of saw what the plan was against Cam Newton last night, which was just score a pile of points, and that way that zone read game goes out the window. And even then, they used it in the red zone to great success until it wasn't no good at the end when they ran power, and he got stopped at the 1 yard line. But you saw what Cam Newton did last night. They fell behind. He threw for 420 something yards. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they have things still in their bag, but, you know, everything has to start with the offense. And I think that they wasted a good opportunity in this one because their offense, I thought, played well enough to win.
Can I ask a random question? Because you guys live there. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of reasons why we've been historic. Noah Igbenogany was 13 months old the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game. That should tell you everything. 13 months, not 13 years. And I'm just trying to think historically why we've been shit, you know, and personnel decisions and bad coaching and things obviously play into it. How much does heat play into it? How much does the weather play into the fact that the Dolphins have historically not been as good a team as they should have been? Does that have anything to do with it? I know we always talk about the advantage of heat because teams are coming down, but when you're playing in that all the time, does that cause the injuries that we seem to get to key players at critical times? Does that have play into it at all, or is that just excuse making for excuse making's sake?
It could be that there could be some merit to it because. If you remember the Shula years in the 90s and in the 80s, a lot of those Dolphin teams were pretty damn good teams that were pretty well thought of before the season. And every single one of those teams used to fade in December. And everybody attributed to the ridiculous practices that Shula had in training camp and during the season. So they would attribute it to dead legs and just generally being tired toward the end of the year. Same thing for Jimmy Johnson. But I don't know if it applies today, you know, in today's day and age. I tell you one thing, the Buffalo Bills got so lucky with the weather on Sunday because they got the most pleasant weather imaginable. They got intermittent showers. So it's like, okay, it's hot, but here, take some nice little mist for you for like 5 minutes. You know what I mean? So you can cool off. And it was constant all game. So, you know, the Bills never really got to feel that heat that we usually have down here.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite. I think the heat is a help, has always been a help early in the season. And it's probably made many of the teams that we've had over the years look better than they really are, than they really were. And so, of course, when they start losing down the stretch and they don't have that heat advantage helping them out, then it's called a fade down the stretch, and it's and then we start to wonder if the Heat somehow stole our legs or something like that. I think in actuality, early in the season and those September home games, I mean, it is demonstrated and well evidenced how much other teams struggle when they come in and they're trying to deal with that heat and humidity. I mean, we've seen games where pretty much every single player on the other side is cramping and going out with cramps. And you can point to a lot to say that the Miami Dolphins have over the decades benefited strongly from the September and October early heat games. Mm-hmm. And then what's the flip side of that is like, it made you look a little bit better than you were. And so the second half of the season, when you do the losing that you probably should have been doing the whole time, it looks like you're fading. And I think that I don't want to bail out the, horrific decisions that the team has made over the last decades that got us here. And that's, yeah. I mean, and there have been horrific decisions. There have been all-time remembered in NFL history horrific decisions that have contributed to getting us here. And hopefully, our hope is that the Dolphins just had something go incredibly right in this draft at the number 5 pick, and we can start getting things moving in the other direction, and maybe tack on a little bit of hopefulness about Brian Flores too. Although he's got his coaching staff has to coach better than they did in these 2 games, that's for sure. Yeah. So I don't buy it like at all, like not even a little bit, about the Heat having something to do with Miami, losing and being bad or being worse than they should be.
Yeah, and oddly enough, the last 2 good Dolphin teams were 2008 and 2016, and both those teams started off like crap and finished off strong. So, but yeah, the weather was, it was perfect weather for the Bills yesterday. They just, it was a cool day. It was cool, It was hot, but then you get rained on for 5 minutes, and it's this misty type of rain. You're comfortable all game, and they sure as hell looked it. And then they got a break in the middle of the third quarter.
Well, yeah, that's the key. We got a nice lightning break, and it helped. I mean, all of a sudden, both offenses start really lighting up there afterwards. And so,
because that game was in the mud at that point. Devontae had just caught a 20-yard pass, and it looked like the Dolphins were going to get something going. The score was 17-10, I believe, at that point. And you could see it. Both offenses were kind of in the mud for 3 possessions. And then all of a sudden they come back from the break and it's, touchdowns all over the place. Now let's briefly touch on the positive. And they were all on offense, I would say. 2 things, Simon. Devontae Parker today was asked, why did he play? And he said, I'm not missing any more games. That has to be a positive. He also played well, I thought. 5 for 53 on 8 targets, a touchdown. But Mike Gesicki,
oh boy,
has he arrived? Did we hit finally, Simon?
Yeah. I mean, the Parker thing. I mean, if we're talking 5 catches for 50 odd yards is impressive, then we need to seriously look at it.
Well, look who shadowed him.
That I agree with that.
Even so, I mean, and that's not strictly true either. Tre'Davious White switched to Mike Gesicki for a significant portion of the game. I mean, Devontae Parker needs to step up his game and stay healthy. We cannot continue to, Devontae Parker is essentially living off one good game at the end of the season where Stephon Gilmore was protecting himself for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I saw Dolphins fans, tweeting about how Gilmore shouldn't have won defensive, player of the year because Devontae had, 100 and some odd yards in the final game of the season. I mean, come on, get over yourselves. That's the biggest victory we can take from last season, is it? I mean, this kid needs to be, you look at a guy like DK Metcalf last night, you look at Julian Edelman, you look at proper big time receivers. He's one of the most inconsistent players the Dolphins have had. He's got so much natural talent. Yeah, he can't get open consistently. He can't consistently week in and week out play to the level that you'd expect him to do. So until he consistently performs like the receiver that he should be, then let's not waste any more energy on him. Mike Gesicki, on the other hand, I thought Arrow was up last year anyway. He has got ridiculously strong hands. He must have the strongest hands of almost any receiver. I mean, he makes so many contested catches and sort of reaching, grabbing catches where you think he's going to have the ball knocked out of his hand, or he's going to, I thought he was brilliant. I mean, he had a couple of really great blocks as well. He had a great block in the third quarter on a run play that was essentially pulled back because Parker, ironically, got a block in the back on Micah Hyde. He absolutely crushed someone. Yeah, it was.
And there was no excuse for that. Someone. There was no planet that was where you're not going to get called for that. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It was horrendous, but I thought Gesicki was great, and it just he should be doing that every week. He consistently can get open against linebackers. He consistently can get open against safeties, and let's be honest, he consistently got open against probably the second or third best corner in the NFL in Tre'Davious White. Throw him the ball. He should be the lead part of that offense. He gets open. You can throw the ball up in the air. He'll go up and get it. He can make short, medium, short, medium, and sort of medium/deep receptions. You can throw to him down the sideline. I think he's developing into one of the best young tight ends in the NFL. I don't think that's any stretch to say that Gesicki is now probably a top 6, top 8 tight end in the NFL, and he's only getting better. And he's only getting better actually in both aspects of the game. His blocking is much improved, but he could be a monster in the pass game. I think he was superb.
Yeah, Chris, I would say another spot that I guess you could take solace in is that they tried to improve the running game over an off season. Mission accomplished. It's better than what they had for sure, but I love what Solomon Kinley's doing, and except for Jordan Howard. Matt Breida and Myles Gaskin look like they have some giddy up. They're hitting the hole hard. They're getting yards after contact.
Jordan Howard's actually having a statistically worse season than
Kellen Balazs.
Howard's having than Caleb Balazs. He's got 13 carries for 11 yards. I think Balazs had a better, which is it's astonishing.
That is astonishing.
I'm actually going to sit here and just go while you talk. I'm going to go through the first 2 games of last season and look at Balazs' stats and see who's doing worse.
Wow.
So Chris, I'm really encouraged. 99 yards on 4.5 yards per carry when they were behind and playing a little bit nervous. I thought it was part of their offense. I thought it was good. I thought it was, it looked competent.
So a couple of cleanup points. First, you said, there's nothing to take away from defense. I actually did take a couple of things away from defense, and that's Eric Rowe and Kyle Van Noy. I like how they're playing right now. I don't think Jerome Baker's playing bad football right now either. I think that there's some encouraging things from this game from a Raekwon Davis, and so there's some stuff there on the defensive side of the ball. So let's get that out of the way. Second, getting to the Mike Gesicki thing, just two quick things to point out is one, think about what he did in that first training camp when he was here, and the old adage, if they don't bite his puppies, then they don't bite. Mm-hmm. He really had some moments in that training camp. I mean, when it looked like he was able to moss these people and stuff like that. So it's nice to see that it's working out. The second thing, Mike Gesicki.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to see that that's working out in the second year when he's, no longer a rookie. It was working out late in the year. The second thing about Mike Gesicki is the arrow really pointing up? Is it just a game or two? I say yes, because look at his blocking. And I think that it's on a completely different level than what it was last year and what it was in college when, he was basically just panned and made fun of constantly for his blocking. I think that he's doing a lot better job there. Now, to get to your point about the ground game, what do you take from this? What I've taken from both weeks is Jordan Howard, that's just not working right now. And, maybe they figure out how to make that work. B, they pass to open up the run. And that's what I've seen in the last 2 weeks, is that they need to pass in order to open up the run, not the other way around. Or at least there are times in the game when it seems like they have to do that. They've clearly found something with Myles Gaskin. 2 weeks in a row, he's shown a little bit of things, but they've clearly also found something with Matt Breida. 2 weeks in a row, we've seen that he runs well in this offense. Yeah, he's a good player. I think that there's meat on the bone there. They can explore that further because he has great speed. If he bounces it outside, you never know, he can take it to the house.
He runs with some attitude too. I didn't expect that, and he runs with attitude.
Put him in the passing game. Myles Gaskin has not been succeeding in the passing game, so Matt Breida can do that. So yeah, they can continue to work on the ground game, but I think that for the most part, it seems like a pass to open up the run thing. However, there were points, and this is where I'd really take some positives from this game. There were points where we lined up all the heavies, and we're just going to knock you off the ball and do that. And traditionally in Miami, when we do that, that's just bad news. You're giving away to the defense what we're going to do, and just line up and do it. Our offensive line loses every time. And this game, there were a couple of those moments, and we just beat them anyway. And it took some patience by the running back to let the blocks develop, but the blocks were holding. The tight ends were holding their blocks, and the guards and the interior linemen and, the tackles were holding their blocks. And so that's where you find that little crease that you didn't think was there. And that's just because everybody's holding their block, and the running back is being patient enough to actually, wait and see it and run right through it. So I took a lot of encouragement from that in particular in the ground game. And I think that, we talk about it, Solomon Kinley, Austin Jackson doing better than maybe we would have even expected right away as rookies. I think that Eric Flowers is
playing well.
Yes. Yeah, he's not been the bad Flowers that we've talked about in the past. No. He's playing a lot more like the good Flowers. Jesse Davis, he might not be long for this line. I think Robert Hunt eventually. I think they all want Robert Hunt eventually in there, right?
Davis is struggling big time, and
he is. He's not. He looks average, or maybe slightly below average. That's what he is as far as a right tackle is concerned. Robert Hunt eventually will be replacing him, and we know that eventually you're going to have to get a higher profile center in that position than Ted Karras. But yeah, I took some real encouragement from that offensive line and what they could do against a good Buffalo front, because when we started to turn it around, I saw the offensive line kind of leading the way, and that's really encouraging, and we'll see if they can continue it now.
So I got the results of our running back. What's the word for omni-shambles? Omni-shambles is probably the right word. Running back omni-shambles. The Jordan Howard versus Kalen Ballage off, if you like. Howard, 13 carries, a whopping 11 yards at a breathtaking 0.8 yards per carry. Are we going higher or lower for Ballage over the first 2 games of last season?
I'm going to go higher.
Alf? Alf, you're going to go higher because you're
he ran for about 379 yards, right? In
his mind.
I don't think he ran for 379 inches, let alone yards. So here we are. So Howard, 13 carries, 11 yards, 0.8 yards per carry. Would you believe that Caleb Ballage had 9 carries for 5 yards at 0.5 yards per carry? Astonishingly,
yes.
Jordan Howard's historically bad start to the season is actually a good start to the season when compared with Caleb Ballage's absolute shit show of a 2019.
I'd be fair to Jordan for just one moment in that, saying that probably how many of his carries have been like goal line or very short yardage? Like probably half of them, right?
He gets the first carry of the game, any goal line stuff, and that's it.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I mean that's a raw deal if you're Jordan Howard, but at the same time, I think that's pretty much all he can do.
Hey, but to be fair, if I told you before the season that he was going to have 16 touchdowns this season, because that's what he's averaging, that's what he's heading right now, would you be happy with that?
Fantasy?
Would you say,
what do you do in fantasy? Do you play Jordan Howard?
No.
No.
Kalen Ballage has got to be looking. Ballage's got to be looking at that thinking, Howard is shit, man. But he's better than me.
Well, that is it. That was your recap of the Week 2 loss to the Buffalo Bills. The next time we talk to you, we will preview Jaguars, Thursday Night Football. Can they get a win? They better. But till then.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.